Hello all! Rick here with a breakdown on a viewer requested topic, the Krenim Temporal Weapon Ship as designed by Annorax and seen in the epic two-parter Voyager episodes Year of Hell. The premise behind this impressive vessel was quite simple: create a ship that could erase its target from time completely and thereby alter history in monumental ways. Exactly the sort of thing that the Temporal Accords were written to prevent, and had it been present in the 26th century onwards, it may have even been a factor in the Temporal Cold War. As mentioned, the ship was conceived and built on the designs of the Krenim scientist Annorax from Kayana Prime around 2170. The vessel was powered by a temporal core, which supplied not only the power for its main weapon and time travel capabilities, but the general power for the ship. The vessel could travel at conventional warp, but that was far from its strong suit, being only capable of warp 6 at most. However, it did not need to be fast, as it quite literally had all the time in the galaxy. At the fore of the ship was a large apparatus that made up half the vessel's length and was divided into 6 pylons, which amplified and focused the temporal energies channelled through it to a single burst of high chronoton and tachyon energy. Upon impact, this beam simply isolates the physical mass of the target it is calibrated for and removes it from history. It is as if whatever it strikes is simply deleted from the timeline, which in turn causes a temporal shockwave to ripple outwards from the point of origin across the galaxy. This shockwave alters everything it touches as an aftershock, converting everything into the new timeline that was created. The only things that are not affected by the changes are things enclosed within temporal shielding, which allows them to persist into the new timeline, unaffected by outside influences. The weapon ship itself has just such incredibly sophisticated shielding, which serves to isolate the ship from the space-time continuum. Otherwise, it would be subjected to even the most basic of paradoxes. That being, if it travels to point A to delete item A and succeeds, then it no longer had a reason to travel there and delete it in the first place. However, the level of shielding on Annorax's ship was so advanced and so complete at removing it from the time stream that the entire vessel and everything on it, including the crew, were no longer subject to general time nor conventional weaponry. As long as one remained aboard the Krenim Temporal Weapon Ship, one was fundamentally immortal, and in this way its mission to restore the Krenim Imperium ran for at least 200 years of on-board ship time, as the crew made numerous alterations. The Krenim vessel also boasted armaments of temporal chronoton torpedoes that were similarly out of phase with space-time, and used this feature to simply slip past regular deflector shielding as if it were not there. It also carried basic energy weapons, but like speed, offensive power was not its strong suit. The vessel had incredibly detailed sensors that could monitor fluctuations in time as the weapon was fired and provide near instantaneous readings on the results of timeline alteration. This is pretty impressive, as it means that the ship was capable of monitoring galaxy-spanning changes instantly, faster than any sensor system that Starfleet has, so I suggest that this was based less on observing a change and perhaps comparing histories with a before and after database of events. The ship also has a very advanced computer designed to process multiple simulations and possibilities as it tries to account for every possible variable to any change they are considering. However, as we see in the show, not even this advanced temporal computer is capable of accounting for every factor in existence. On board the vessel, Annorax developed a rather morbid museum of lost relics from the hundreds of worlds and cultures that his ship had erased from existence, down to the meals of extinct planets. Although extinct, I guess, isn't the right word, if they never existed to begin with. But then again, the targets of the temporal weapon did exist, and so long as the weapon exists, there is a pocket of unaltered reality where their victims still once lived. When the ship was eventually destroyed, the temporal core within was detonated and the Krenim weapon ship itself was erased from time amid a new rippling incursion that restored the timeline to a point before Annorax began meddling. In the restored history, the man's family was restored to existence, themselves a casualty of the Krenim's meddling, and this led the designs for the temporal weapon to never progress beyond the theoretical stages, as Annorax was no longer being driven by grief. At least, that's how I interpreted the ending of Year of Hell. Of course, the ship does see itself crop up again in apocryphal content, as someone picks up those schemes from the Krenim's archives and continues Annorax's work. But eventually that is all sorted out by the temporal agencies of the future in a messy story. If you're interested in that one, I've already covered it in a temporal war breakdown video that I'll link below. Annorax was a great villain in Trek, and the Temporal Weapon Ship a formidable foe for the lone USS Voyager to contend with, one that took everything the ship and crew had to remove. The two-parter story remains one of my favourite Trek storylines to this date, and even if it does ultimately fall back into the trope of "and it never happened, like a dream." So what do you think of the Temporal Weapon Ship? And if you remember the episode, how did you feel at its conclusion? I've been Rick. Thanks for watching this one, and I hope you remember to raise your own temporal shields, or you'll have forgotten about the 9-minute introduction of tap dancing penguins that was a pain to choreograph. Wait, I think I removed that by accident.